if you've just joined us, I'm joined by James Reeves and Paul Collins. We are talking about the power of Yoga Nidra, the true meaning of deep rest, and a journey of self-discovery. James, that was one of your choices. Tell us why that track.
Oh, sure. Well, Massive Attack for me, when I remember first hearing them, buying their first album in HMV, sometime in that, I think, very late 80s, maybe 1990. And it just being such a new sound and being very exciting. And actually, I was in a band through my 20s, and we sort of tried to mimic them along with Portishead and that whole sort of Bristol sound thing. So it's personal in that way. But I picked it because of the words and the sentiment so beautifully sung by Horace Andy. The big wheel keeps on turning on a simple line day by day. The world spins on its axis. One man struggles and another relaxes. And this is life. You know, there's the world is going to keep on turning. There are going to be bad people, difficult events. So many things are actually outside of our control. And I see so much of the human struggle is trying to do something about, or getting wound up by, things that are completely outside of their control. And then losing the perspective that there are certain things within their control, which is how they feel and respond to things inside themselves, connecting with the people that are important in their lives and being loving and kind towards them could actually change so much. So this idea that in many ways the world is going to keep on spinning, and that there will be struggles and sorrows and goodness and grace for all of us in our lives. There's a real mixed bag, none of which we can really predict that much. Yet when we are willing to take our hands off of the things that we can't control, we can actually then bring our attention towards that we can, and we can focus on looking after ourselves and those close to us, and unplug to some degree out of the great. There's such unrest and such, I think, a kind of frustration with the way that the world is, but there's actually not so much you can do about it. And if you believe you can, then go and do something. Don't moan about it. Go and actually engage and do something. But I think that's been a great balm to me, and I'm sure Paul would back me up with this. That sense of being able to let go of control to some degree is such a great freedom for us.
You're so right, and we're going to come on to that. I think welcoming is so important, and it's just gone 11:11. And on this show that I do on a Tuesday, I like to have a mindful moment, really, just welcoming where we are. So if you're listening and you're not driving, please feel free to close down your eyes, and we're just going to take a minute just to arrive exactly as we are in the space that we're in. And just really welcoming what's going on for you. Just welcoming the sounds you can hear. Welcoming the different smells that might be present. Welcoming the sensations in the body. Welcoming your breathing. And just welcoming everything exactly as it is. Not trying to change anything. Just aware of your feet on the ground. The space around you. And just coming back into this moment. If you're at home, you can keep your eyes closed as you continue to listen to James and Paul and I. Obviously, if you're driving, we're hoping that you didn't engage in that too much. But yes, we're going to talk about welcoming. James, tell us what that means for you.
Sure. Well, on one level, it's kind of what I was just talking about around control, but it's a mindset, something that we can take on psychologically, that proposes the idea that what would it be like to struggle less against one's life circumstances, and to be able to be willing to meet and greet and then respond to whatever we're experiencing internally within ourselves and externally in the world. So it's really a shift from kind of choosing and refusing. I want more of this and I don't want that in my life, and more around being curious, open, and just really receptive to what's going on in life, including the difficult stuff or the bad stuff. When we need to engage with it, can we meet that with curiosity and openness? It's such a shift. It's such a paradigm shift in terms of how we are. And to give it a framework, it's based back on this idea that we talked about, that there's part of us that's always at peace, always quiet. And if you're listening, like a great way to access that is to recognise that there's something familiar for us as human beings. There's something that we've always known. It's like, from our child self to your now self to how you'll experience yourself as you age and move towards the end of your life. That there's this consistent part of our experience, which we call me or I, but that's outside of ideas and concepts and words, and there's no narrative there. It just is. It's just observing, just watching. And when we start to access that part of ourselves by resting, by being willing to stop and do nothing and just gaze out the window or lie on the sofa and close our eyes, we come back to this quietness. And as we begin to know it, and this is where it's helpful to have a guide like myself or like Paul or someone that's got the experience of this, we can know that that quiet essence isn't choosing and refusing, doesn't actually give a hoot, doesn't have preferences, doesn't have a problem with how certain things in life are. There's a deep ease within us. So on one level, we can kind of learn this idea of welcoming and being with things as they are, which has its own relaxation psychologically. But it's a sort of doorway towards realising that there's part of us that's kind of always been okay. It doesn't mean that we have to become a doormat in life. It doesn't mean that I'm proposing or that this idea of welcoming means that we allow life to overwhelm us. We can still have boundaries. We can still have our own responses to life's experiences, but it's a change from wanting to push everything away towards getting really curious, because essentially anxiety, anger, fear, control, whatever your emotional experience might be, is here to tell you something. Anxiety will be saying, "Oh, have you thought about that?" And "Oh my gosh, what if this happens?" And when we learn to turn towards anxiety and say, "Oh, okay, I hear you," and I also recognise that there's a young part of me that seems like worried or concerned, and what can I do to meet this part and soothe this inner experience within myself? When I start to welcome it, I realise it calms right down, and I'm no longer so overwhelmed by those feelings that I've been desperately trying to get away from all of my life. And I wish someone had told me that when I was 7 years old. That would have been really helpful. It would have been really good.
I know, just being curious and welcoming that, because we push away the bad stuff, don't we? Which kind of just makes it bigger. And I remember, Paul, when we very first met some years ago now, and you introduced me to a really short practice with the opposites. Do you remember? And I had to sit with something, and it was so easy for me to sit with the feelings of discomfort, but to sit with the feelings of peace, I couldn't access it. And you said, well, we'll just be with that for a minute. And I wanted to say something which I won't say on air, but I went with it. And the power in that is quite something, isn't it? Just the welcoming, the good, the bad, playing with it. And how's your experience with that been, Paul?
I remember we were sitting in that nice lounge exploring this. I think this idea of welcoming is quite alien to most people, because most people are trying to fix, change, get rid of stuff. And I remember working with someone once and came in with anger issues. I said, how would it be if you welcome the anger? He said, what do you mean? I'm trying to get rid of it. And I think that was my experience, that I was driven by anger, and that was the main emotion I could identify with, driven by underlying issues, which we might get into, sort of the beliefs that I had. But the idea of sort of peacefulness, calmness was alien to me. And I've worked with plenty of people who can identify with a supposedly negative emotion, but the idea of the supposedly positive emotion, we don't really name them as positive and negative because they just are. The default is with the negative or the uncomfortable, the unpleasant emotions, and for a lot of people the nice one, to fully ground in peace, contentment, happiness can be uncomfortable for some people.
Because we get used to things, don't we? And like you said about beliefs, and James touched on, when we're younger, there's a part of us that has this belief that things should be a certain way, and then we start to have possessions and things, and we want things, and with that me and the I always remember someone telling me once about, when a child goes up to a photo when they're really little, they'll refer to themselves as the name. So, but then as we get bigger, it becomes I, me, mine. But when you're little, it'd be like, oh, look at Kelly or something, and you just see that as this, just all perfect, all being object. But then the moment you become, it becomes a possession, and there's attachments, and it's, and there's just so much in the welcoming and unraveling the belief system, isn't there, that we have, because we all have beliefs. Do you want to share, both of you, some of yours that might have changed or stayed the same, or you might have made peace with?
What the beliefs I have?
Yeah. Give people that are listening that might think we're going crazy here, but an example of what a belief might be, because for us this is quite a normal. We understand what we're meaning because we've done a lot of work, particularly both of you. But for someone listening, what would a belief look like to someone? What sort of belief might someone hold?
So some classics, you mean?
Yes, some classics that people can relate to.
So, probably the one I hear the most is I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I can't do that. Take I can't do that. I mean, in many ways, there's this great quote from Master Eckhart, a very well respected, revered teacher of these kind of ideas. From a long time ago, I believe 1800s, who said, whatever you believe, either way, you're right. So when we tell ourselves, I can't do that, or I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy, or I don't belong, or I don't fit in. And we all learnt these beliefs, by the way. I'll share a bit as to the how in a moment. We can start to examine them. And we can begin to notice in a simple way, as we watch our mind and as we watch ourselves expressing and talking in our lives, we realise, oh gosh, there's belief in me. One of my fundamental ones is that I'm unlovable. I grew up in a family system. We all grow up thinking our families are normal, and then we get into our 20s and we talk to our friends and go, oh yeah, we did this. And they go, what? That's really weird. And you're like, oh, is it? But I grew up in a family system where my dad was very engaged in work and in maintaining and building a house, and was absent because that's what dads were in those days in many ways, and a really authoritative, possibly authoritarian and controlling mum, who was, also very loving. So I put those two together, and I grew up with this experience because of my dad's busyness, that I thought I was unlovable, that he just wasn't interested in me. My mum's desire to really, according to my brother, try and get me in line, because my brother was a dream to parent, and I was really, I didn't want to follow the rules or do the things. So, there was this deep trying to correct me and put me on the tracks that left me with this feeling of being unlovable. Neither my parents did anything wrong, neither did I. It was just what unfolded and what happened. But I've lived with this belief that I'm unlovable, which has made me make disastrous choices in relationships, has left me somehow not showing up in ways with friends and in any kind of relational environment, because there's this big sort of hole inside, and we all carry those wounds. No one gets out of childhood unscathed. I love this just beautiful idea that at some point in the innocence of our childhood, maybe we're 2, we're 3, this is a lovely sort of anecdotal tale where you know, our caregiver's gone upstairs to the bathroom and we see a packet of crayons on the kitchen table and we go, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw Mummy and Daddy a picture. So you get the crayons out and you start drawing on the wall. And you're scribbling, but, you know, to you in your 2-3-year-old way, you think you're drawing a beautiful picture of this sort of magical savannah scene from Africa or some kind of tropical rainforest. And then you hear the bathroom, you know, the flush of the toilet and the wash of the hands, and the door lock clicks, and you can hear them coming down the stairs, and you're so excited that they're going to see this beautiful picture. And what do you get? What have you done? You've drawn all over the wall. Oh my God. And all of us have that experience where we, you know, we're just expressing ourselves and we're in a sort of mid-pirouquet, and the joy of just being innocent and alive, and suddenly we're cut down and we've done something bad and we're wrong, and we all just ingest that and internalise that. So this loving lens of welcoming and being in touch with ourselves and being curious can be such a balm to all of that stuff that sits in us as really misplaced beliefs. You know, it's not true that I'm unlovable. I mean, some days I possibly am, you know, like I'm certainly no saint. And it's not about trying to create some sort of positive veneer or turn something around into, oh, I'm lovable or I'm perfect. But it's realising that there's an opposite to that belief. And as we explore its opposite and we play with the feeling of one in our body and then the feeling of another, we can learn to kind of compensate and come out of something that's been so stuck within us for such a long time.
I know, the freedom in that welcoming is just, it's almost unsettling, isn't it, for people? Because you hear, like Paul touched on, you know, people might say, oh, I'm battling with depression. So they've already made it this battle. And if they welcome the suppression of feelings, due to things like you're sharing, James, where people have had these experiences, not necessarily any right or wrong, people are busy and that's how it was, but it creates the belief system that we just don't give ourselves the space to be with, to move through it and just understand and unravel and allow things to unfold as they should, because it's got to stack up somewhere, hasn't it? And then we feel it in the body, which is why Yoga Nidra is really beautiful, to be able to connect with that in the sense of the practice, I guess. So, yeah. Paul, belief for you?
It's very much this umbrella of not good enough, I've done something wrong. And that was sort of always there. It felt like I'd never struggled at school. And then I think I really saw this sort of power of opposites. So I joined the Marines, and in there they make you believe you're indestructible, you do anything. And there was certainly this sense of pride of achieving a commando training, which is pretty intense for 9 months. And I saw then I'd switch from, I think I didn't realise at the time, I then just became toxically positive, at times quite arrogant with this, I can do anything, I'm indestructible, which really was a veneer or survival mechanism over this insecure little boy that wasn't good enough. And when that was fueled by the drink or the drugs as well, to believe I'm good enough and it was the only way I could navigate life, that pride got quite toxic, even sort of arrogance and false. I call it toxic positivity. That was just overriding this insecure part of me. Once I saw the power of the opposites, how they can cancel them out, and now sometimes I'm good enough and sometimes I'm not good enough. Sometimes I'm lovable, sometimes I'm not lovable. Some of these beliefs are deeper rooted than others, but they can still keep showing up. But that's then I can take a belief and the feelings and the emotions that are related to that belief into a practice. So can I then become my own loving parent, the part of me that feels unlovable, not good enough, I've done something wrong, it's all that negative chatter. To be loving and compassionate to myself, and even the more I'm sort of showing up of how I want to be in life, those blind spots can keep showing up, that quiet little voice, but are you really good enough? And can I be loving and compassionate to that little dark chatter?
But that's important as well, though, isn't it? To understand for all of us that even though we move through things, we're still going to have things rise and come to us that we then need to, welcome and again be compassionate and, go through what we need to experience to find a bit of light again. But I think it's just really important for us to feel safe, which is why conversations like this for people to hear, for me, are fundamental, particularly as you both as men, which I think is really important. A lot of men do not feel comfortable sharing belief systems like this that a lot of people listening might be feeling or experiencing and not know where to go with this, what to do with it, and know that all this depression that they're sat under or anger that they're experiencing, it's a messenger, like James said about anxiety. It's trying to tell us something, and there are things that we have access to, like iRest and Yoga Nidra and, the wonderful work you do in family constellations and breath work, and that we can experience and go on our own inner journey to know that there is that place, I think.
Yeah, and I think coming back to the sort of the 10 steps of iRest, we touched on the first 2 steps of intention and deep wish and heart's desire. The third step, which is sort of key to working with, I'll ban the word trauma or discomfort or anxiety, whatever levels of hurt and pain. The example James used, the child drawing on the wall, can seem traumatic or a wound for some people and maybe not for others. And this developing and working with a sense of inner comfort, for me, is very key to working with trauma. This sense of safety. And when I worked in rehab, a lot of the people said they'd never felt safe in their life. And you talk about sort of feelings of peace and calm, feeling alien. For a lot of people, to feel safe is alien. Some people might not even realise they don't feel safe, and then they're using other things to feel safe, to feel okay, to feel at peace. So
I know it's that constant pressure, isn't it, to keep up, which I think brings us on nicely, actually, to one of James's song choices, Under Pressure by Queen. We're going to play that, and then we're going to come back, and then we'll be in the last section of today's show, which just is unbelievable, really, how quickly the time has flown. James, introduce this track and tell us why.
Oh, sure. Well, it's actually, I'm grateful to my kids. I think that this was in the soundtrack to the first Sing film that I watched for them a few years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't heard this track for a while. But it's all about how pressure can break us, and that we've forgotten our commonality and our being together as humans. And I think to your point particularly about vulnerability in men, but I don't think it's exclusive to one gender. But that vulnerability piece about when we're having a hard time, we need to learn to reach out. We actually need support. We need other people. We need ways to find this befriending quality within ourselves. If we can't do that for ourselves, we need to have a connection with someone that can really help us and support us, and someone that's gone on that journey of vulnerability. So this song is really, it's an old song now, but it's been going on for a while. There's a lot of pressure. And when we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and when we're put under a lot of pressure, we can break, and it can break families apart. So reach out if that's you.
Thank you, James. I have been joined today, and I'm glad they're still with me, with James Reeves and Paul Collins, and we have been talking all about iRest, restorative integration, and James shared exactly what that means, so you can go back and listen again. But we were talking about how important it is for us as beings to feel supported, to feel safe, and to reach out. James?
Yeah, well, what I experience a lot of the time is that vulnerability piece is the thing that's in the way. And if we can recognise that we all need support, and that support is available for us. I know Paul and myself, we work with people one-to-one, and I've worked with so many different people from different walks of life, from A-list celebrities all of the way through to, people at home looking after kids, stressed out and overwhelmed. And that support can be such a lifeline. And then that's not everyone's style. Not everyone wants to come up and work with someone in such a sort of intimate way, we could say. So if you're curious about some of the things we've spoken about, you could think about accessing some of these practices. They're available on my website. You can find loads of information on Yoga Nidra out there in the World Wide Web. But to be able to start to plug into some of these practices and learn how to rest, learn how to stop, learn how to be, and recover your own kind of essential well-being, I think that's self-care. So that's when we reach out to ourselves, when we do that kind of stuff. But that also support's available. I run a weekly online class, which is an hour long, and we kind of pick a theme. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago we were doing glimmers. Last week we were talking about welcoming in the good. That's why I spoke about them. They're quite fresh in my mind. But people dial in actually from all over the world, and they come and engage in this hour where I'll say a little bit and then we'll do a couple of practices together. And the consistent feedback is, it's people's most important part of their week, to be able to come and unplug, because it's hard to do for ourselves, I think. So there's that support piece as well, like actually choosing to spend an hour each week and then let someone else create the experience for you, let someone else guide you into that sense of well-being and wholeness.
It's crazy, really, that we're now having to learn how to rest when it's the most natural thing we come in with into this world, and we're in a place, but we do need support. So for anybody that is listening that's curious and would like to explore this online or in person, James, can you share your website and your details with us, and then Paul will come to you?
Sure. I mean, you can Google, I believe you can Google, I don't tend to Google myself very often, Google James Reeves Deep Rest, or probably just Deep Rest, or just go to www.deeprest.com, and you'll find some free resources there. So there are some Yoga Nidra practices that you can listen to, some rest practices. I'm also the author of the Book of Rest, which we might get into talking about briefly. But
let's do that right now.
Oh, okay.
I've got it in front of me. I've read it. Tell us about your book, James.
Sure. Well, that one emerged a few years ago just by sort of happenstance and fate. I'd fantasised about writing it for a long time, and a literary agency got in touch with me from London, someone who'd experienced my training courses, these iRest courses that you came on.
Which is brilliant for anyone listening.
Yeah, thank you, thanks. They essentially said, would you like to write a book? And the Book of Rest is a sort of play on words, so it's about resting. It's also about discovering this quiet essence inside you. It's about coming home to who you really are as this kind of peaceful self. So it's quite a circular book. It sort of goes round and round, because rest is very simple. But as you say, when did you last walk down the street and notice a billboard that said, you don't need this product or service, just go home, lie down, and close your eyes and you'll feel great again. But we've forgotten, haven't we? The world's gone mad.
The world has gone mad. So if you feel like you're going mad, you can look up James or his book, available in all the places where you can buy books nowadays. Paul, you're local, you're running classes, aren't you? So if anyone's curious and wants to work one-to-one or come to group, family constellation, all the things, tell us about you and where we can find you.
First, I could highly recommend James's book. I've done James's trainings many times and supported him, and they're wonderful experiences. There's so much in this practice. It's taken me years to really digest the teachings, and I'm still learning. We were covering the 10 steps, this relationship between body, breath, feeling, emotion and thought. And I've taken different aspects of it. So I run monthly breath workshops. I do a weekly, I don't know if I allowed to say the...
You can say the wellness barn.
Oh, the wellness barn, yeah. I run a weekly mindful movement which integrates the principles of iRest into mindful movement, so it's not imposing on the body.
Which I can highly recommend.
Oh, thank you.
Thursday mornings, 9:30.
Thank you. And I run some family constellation workshops where we actually map out these opposites that we can be caught up in and jump in and out of that, but that's a whole other subject. But a lot of my other work with iRest is running groups. So I run an online live group on a Tuesday. And it's based on the groups I ran in prison and the books I've written.
Which are, let's talk about that, shall we?
It was my sort of simplified version of the iRest manual for people in prison who wanted to change and rehabilitate and didn't have access to recordings or teachings. So it's a simplified version, or in plain English. Whereas a lot of the trainings come from teachings called forgot it. Kashmir Shaivism and Advaita Vedanta. Me being from East London can't even pronounce that.
So hopeful you should hear me do the sport here on an evening. It's tragic. So you did well there.
So yeah, just plain English for these deep teachings, and similar to James, I've got recordings on my website. There's 28 hours of material that people can download as courses, or there's the books available for. Because some people I work with can't even do the practices to sit with themselves for a minute or 2 minutes is a challenge. So just broken down elements of those.
So the books are called A Key to Freedom, Finding Peace Inside with iRest, Sleep Meditation, and Waking Up, also available wherever you might find all good books nowadays. And Paul, can you tell us your website as well for those listening?
Well, there's two. The books come under the CIC, or the sort of charitable work I want to develop to vulnerable populations, which is thriveinside.org. Or my private personal work is beyondgroup.co.uk.
And I think it's important to say here just a couple of things, that any charities or organisations that are listening, you're really passionate about being in the community, aren't you, and developing this work. So if there's anyone listening that's got a space or people that need support, Paul would be open to a conversation there. So do find him. And also another thing, I have had the pleasure of experiencing both James and Paul's work. So it's really special to be here with both of them, and safety is at the forefront. So if you're curious, either online or in person, definitely reach out, because it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. So, Paul, we're going to do a little bit of work together, aren't we, in the future as well? So exciting things to come.
We are indeed. And I want to add that Kelly's now a level 1 iRest teacher. So, Kelly, can you tell us about your offerings?
Well, Paul and I are going to do some courses together, aren't we? We're going to do an 8-week programme. And I already locally run my meditation circle, which you've attended, haven't you? And
Beautiful.
It's very much a welcoming, actually. I would say that's what it is. I kind of go with what people need, but just having a space to be with how we're feeling and who we are, you just can't have enough of it. And people will relate differently to different people and different spaces, and some people will feel more comfortable online, some in person, but there is so much out there. So if this speaks to you, know that it's okay to ask for help, is what I would say. But over to you guys. We've only got 5 minutes or so. Leave us with some lasting takeaway tips, little gems of wisdom that the listeners can try. James?
Well, I love talking about this because it's great for us to waffle on and pontificate about all of this stuff. But how do you actually do it? So, if you're walking down the street, or if you're heading into town, if you're looking around you, there's this sort of tendency to be in that negativity bias and to see people as, threat or problems. But if you step back from that and you maybe as you go out your front door, you just take a moment to notice that you're safe, or relatively safe, that you at least have security within your own place that you live. And you take that sense of well-being out with you, and as you start to walk down the street, you appreciate and you take in maybe some of the nature. Perhaps as people are walking by, you can take a moment to recognise that there's goodness in every human being, and that we start to go around and gather up these glimmers. And we notice when someone smiles at us as they're walking by, or when someone asks us how we are at the checkout, or as we're buying a coffee. And we start to take in what's good. So that would be my first tip. And then the other thing would be in amidst the busyness. We all have smartphones, and I think they should be called stupid phones because they make us, I think, dumb as much as they're very smart. But that tendency that we have to fill and plug every gap in our lives with more information, or a game, or a bit of stimulus, or a something. So when you're boiling the kettle, go and stare out of the window. When you have a moment where you're waiting for something, go and just be. Give yourself permission to sit on the sofa for 5 minutes and drink the cup of tea without looking at your phone, or doing something, or making a to-do list, or having a conversation. Start to give yourself time to stop and rest. Because a little bit and often, these moments where we inoculate ourselves against stress by just, going and sitting outside for 2 minutes and listening to the birds and taking in some fresh air, they're simple, they're free, and they are the way back to this quiet essence that we have been all of our lives. So give yourself permission to stop. We all feel guilty maybe, or that we don't deserve it, or we've got this fear of missing out, or we're just habituated to plugging into more, and and it makes us all feel mad. So give yourself permission to stop and rest, and take these little micro moments in your life to just stop and be.
Thank you, James. We do, crazily, we need permission, don't we? But we can give ourselves that permission. And stare out the window, and it's raining out there, but without the rain, we wouldn't have the growth, would we? So, Paul, leave us with something, anything at all that you feel you want to leave people with today.
Just breathe. And just, often people talk about breathing and big inhales, actually exhale. Slow, gentle exhale through the lips. Just one breath is all it takes. Out breath. Brings you in the moment.
We're so often out of the moment, aren't we? So often. And that's why the 10 steps of iRest, for me, I think it's such a beautiful way to just bring absolutely everything together. And there are so many of my own notes that I took, even with on the training with you, James. But I think these pauses, it enables us to have our own understanding. And you with your book, Paul, and with yours, we're writing our own experience and just translating that to speak to more and more people. And the more people that pause and listen, the bigger the ripple that's going out, and the more glimmers we'll see, rather than feeling these triggers all the time, because it's draining. And it doesn't have to be that way all the time. We've only got a couple of minutes, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this, having you both in here. Thank you for travelling down, James.
Thank
and
you.
Paul, thank you for being here. And it's just such a pleasure to share the work that you can feel the changes it's made to you both fundamentally, which is why you're so passionate about sharing it. You can feel that. And if you have just tuned in and you've missed the whole of today's show, you can listen again. It's available online, marlowfm.co.uk, and just select listen again, today's date, and good morning, Marlow. Up next, we've got Abby with the Eclectic Light Show. She will be taking you through till 2 o'clock with a whole wonder of songs. She's in the studio with a lovely white hat on, nice and cosy in there. And she'll be with you for the next 2 hours, so do stay tuned. But we've got a couple more minutes left, and she's coming in now. She might jump on in here with us. She's in. Oh, I was just saying on air, Abby, that you're up next for the next 2 hours. Then you look startled. So we're handing over to you shortly, aren't we? Yes. Yeah. Yes, so Abby will be with you next. And if you are still around later, I'm going to be back in the studio 5 till 7 on drive time. We're going to have Guess the Year, taking you home with your favourite music, or more so mine. And see if you can guess the year. But thank you, James. Thank you, Paul. Any final lasting thoughts? Anyone that's struggling, that thinks we're going mad? Couple of words of wisdom, and then we're going to play out with UB40.
I would just lean into this idea, even if it's an idea, that there's something in you that's right, something that's okay, something that is already healed, whole, healthy, already interconnected with everything else. I think if we can lean into that possibility, it takes us immediately away from the fact that we're damaged goods and that there's something wrong with us, and allows us to connect with a new possibility, because if we can find something that's okay within us, then we're able to explore all of the parts of us that clearly aren't okay, because we all have those too.
That's lovely, isn't it? That in every single one of us, there is a part of us that's okay. Mm. And I think we do forget that. Mm. So thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Kelly.